Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Kurious Cast. I'm Charles Coetzee, your host and co-owner of Kurious Group. Today, we are in a bit of a different space. We've been hosted by Yasmin at Kingsmead over in the Bureau at 25 Blythe Street. So thank you for this beautiful space, Yasmin. But today, for episode 9, we have a very special guest for our first episode of the year. A woman who truly embodies what it means to be an entrepreneur and a business person, demonstrates what it means to take those risks and live out those rewards. I'm very happy to introduce Jodi Jacobs for our first episode of the year. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So for the audience, we obviously know each other quite well, and I know a little bit about your story. I'm hoping to learn a lot more today. But just to get started, if you could just let the audience know a little bit about yourself and who it is that you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jodi Jacobs. I live in Los Angeles, California. I grew up in New Hampshire, and I own two businesses. One is a portrait studio in Santa Monica, in California, and the other one is it's called Market Start. It's an online educational platform to help people understand investing in the stock market. And, I think for as long as I can remember, I've been a business person and an entrepreneur. I actually remember growing up in New Hampshire at a very young age, just trying to start some kind of business. I never really played house, I played shop. So I had a clothing shop in my bedroom, and I would pretend like I was interacting with customers and making sales. And then one day I tried to actually take that to the end of my driveway, but I was trying to have a lemonade stand, but the lemonade wasn't selling. So I went back up the driveway and I got my dad's beer. And I packed it up in a suitcase. I tried to drag it down to the end of the driveway to sell at my stand. But I got halfway down. My mother caught me and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The lemonade's not working, so I'm going to sell dad's beer." And she goes, "What? You can't do that. You're not old enough to sell beer." And so, unfortunately, that didn't work out. So
Well,
I started failing in business very early on.
that's okay. Well, it's the failures that give us the lessons for the next thing. So one thing you didn't mention, which is kind of where I wanted to start, is you're also an author.
Mhm.
So I had this book arrive from Amazon about 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I opened it up, and my wife had ordered it, and
Yeah.
it was your book.
Yeah.
So I opened it up, had a quick look through it, and then I sat down with my 6-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
and it's a children's book. So I sat down and started reading through the book with her.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I learned a lot reading this book that I probably didn't know about the stock market, especially the American stock market. Um, and there was a lot that she learned, and she sat there and asked a million questions. Some of them I had to Google, but a lot of it was answered in the book. So it was a very comprehensive book as far as teaching someone who, whether an adult or a child, um, about money and about the stock market and about how it all kind of works and money moves, that most adults don't really have the answer to. So let's talk a little bit about that. And the one thing in particular that I noticed was at the beginning there was a dedication to your father,
Yeah.
which I thought was really really nice. And I from reading that dedication you put to him there, there's obviously a bit of there's probably a bit more context behind that. If you're happy to share that.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that probably ties into a bit of your beginnings about, probably where your inspiration for your lemonade beer stand came from.
Yeah. So my dad was a huge influence on my life. And he was a very successful entrepreneur. He opened one of the first Apple resale stores ever. So
Mhm.
even before Apple had their own stores, he had a resale store for them.
Yep.
And um I started going to work with him at a very young age and just picking up on how businesses worked and everything that kind of goes along with the day to day of running a retail store. And so uh that was definitely one of my first memories with him. And another one of my first memories that just kind of ties into business is stock market investing.
Yep.
I remember talking to my dad about Apple stock at a very early age. Apple stock was the hot thing, the hot stock back then. It's still kind of semi is, but
Just very expensive now.
it is a lot more expensive now, that's
Yep.
for sure. Yep. So he started teaching me about the stock market at a very young age. He would tell me how to research stocks. He would ask me about stocks to buy. Um, and I had this obsession with Disney when I was younger. Obviously, at such a young age, it's a little bit more difficult to understand the fundamentals and the technicals behind stock market investing.
Mhm.
But I knew that I was obsessed with Disney. So I thought, if I'm obsessed with Disney, a lot of people must be obsessed with Disney, especially at my age. And
How old was that?
oh boy, I want to say it was 9.
That's very young. Usually at 9, for a child to be obsessed with Disney, they're more obsessed with like the toys, not
Mhm.
how I can get involved.
Yeah, right. Well, it started with the toys,
Yeah.
the glass collectibles, the plates, the snow globes, all of that.
Hmm.
And then, so he that was just one of the ways that he would get me interested. You know, what what kind of business are you interested in? And then of course it was a matter of whether or not the business was public or the company was public.
Hmm.
I just kind of a shot in the dark. I told my dad, what about Disney stock? And so he looked it up and it did really well. And um I held that stock for a very long time. So I guess the basis of why I wrote this book is because if I could grasp this at such a young age, I think other kids can too. And my vision for the book was actually to have parents reading it to their children so they were learning alongside their children.
It's definitely worked.
Excellent. I love hearing that. Because I think that what a lot of people don't understand about stock market investing is you have to understand the ins and outs of the stock market on a whole. It's not just about buying and selling stocks. It's not just about um, reading something on social media or online about the hot stock of the week. So many things I could say about the hot stock of the week. But for now, I'll just say it's important to really understand the stock market and market cycles before buying a stock and just, again, the ins and outs of the market. And that's one of the things that I wanted to teach kids and parents in this book. And so that's also why you have that dedication in there to my dad,
Yeah.
because everything I grew up learning about the stock market and business is all because of him.
That's really beautiful to hear. And as a father, I get really like that really resonated because it was like me and Monica really tried to emphasize a lot of those principles that probably your dad did on you with our daughter and with our children, because you're never really too young to learn those things.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially when it's put into when it's illustrated and it's written in the way that you have, it makes it so much easier to be able to sit there and just get them to understand very like good fundamental practices and things that, like I said, most people that are grown adults wouldn't really know to just go straight over their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they make it a complicated vehicle for a complicated system for a reason.
Hmm.
It's a business.
Yep.
It's a business of businesses, and there's businesses behind that because there are money managers and fund managers, and there's so I feel like they make it complicated for a reason. So but it's really, when it's broken down, it's a lot easier to understand and grasp.
Can you say they make it complicated for a reason? Would you say it's to keep the normal person out, or would you say it's for other reasons?
Oh no, 100%. They want to keep individual investors out of the market.
Hmm.
Um, and they want to help, they want to manage their money because
Yes.
they're getting paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of fees, annual fees, transaction fees, and brokers are getting it. Sometimes brokers are getting rich off of making you poor. And I hate to say that, but I do feel that that is a sad fact behind a lot of money managing and investing, uh, especially mutual funds.
And the beautiful thing is about today's day and age, and the fact we live in a free market, whether you're in Australia or in the US, um, is that if you've got the right tools and the right knowledge, you can do a lot of this without having to worry about those big brokers getting rich off making you poor and so
Right.
forth.
And not only that, but you can make more money yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties into market start. So
Mhm.
what is it? If you can give us like a bit of a brief rundown as far as like what it is market start is, like how did that all come about? And I'm guessing it's probably got a lot to do with the book and where that all started, and obviously what you probably I'm guessing a bit of probably maybe your personal experience dealing with brokers in the past. So can you give us some context about like how you got into that business of helping other people learn how to trade?
Yeah. So I think, well, there are a few reasons. One, when I was starting the studio, or
Hmm.
a few years in, the studio was needing more of my attention,
Hmm.
and I needed someone to manage my money.
Hmm.
And so I went to someone who was very high up at a bank, and he saw my returns and he said, "I'm not touching your account. I can't do anything with this. I will never get you the returns that you get yourself."
Hmm.
So, we parted ways. And well, we never actually joined forces, I guess. So I don't even know if we could say we parted ways, but he wouldn't work with me because again, he said he couldn't get me the returns that I got for myself. So I had to learn to juggle life and my portfolio.
Hmm.
So the fact that I had someone who was so high up at I can't even remember the bank, but it's a very well known, well established. To have someone so high up who was on a VP level tell me, I can't do this for you. Told me I need to go out there and I need to help other people do this for themselves.
That's a big thing to hear.
Yeah, because and it's also, I've heard so many stories of people getting financially hurt by their brokers. And it kills me. It pains me, literally pains me, especially when I see and hear people at retirement age
Yeah.
come to me and tell me, "I worked with a broker. They lost all this money." And I'll never tell them this, and I hate to say it, but if you come to me at retirement age, I can't help you. I don't want to say it's too late, but
The
it's
damage is done.
a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. So that's why it's another reason why I wrote this book, because this book it's a learning vehicle. It's getting the wheels turning at a young age because you want to get on this as soon as possible so that you never have to get to that point at retirement or when you're close to retirement saying, "Oh, I have to do something with this now." You spend years just adding to your 401k and then
Just for anyone watching in Australia, a 401k is like a superannuation fund.
yes.
Yeah.
So you get to the end of your career and you're thinking, "Oh my God, what do I do? How am I going to manage this? What do I do?" It's important to start investing early because then you do have those years where you are learning the market cycles, and you do lose money, but then you have all that time to make it back.
And then you said before, you just mentioned before, you said your studio. So for those that don't know,
Mhm.
you own quite a successful portrait studio in California. So how did that business and other businesses you may have had previously, and just being the person taking the risk to open these businesses and put the capital forward and employ the staff and everything else, how did those experiences, good and bad,
Yeah.
shape your ability to trade on the market, but also then feed into your other business of helping people? So like
Yeah.
what does that look like?
So that's a really good question. I think one of the things that people don't understand is that the stock market it's about understanding business. It's about understanding how a business works. It's about understanding the financials behind a business, financial health of a business. So owning a business has really helped me to further understand how a business works, what's behind it. Okay, so for example, if you have a business that has one source of customers coming in. This actually happened with a business recently in the stock market that I watch, and uh, Apple is their biggest customer. Apple left them recently to make their own products that they were making, and that stock tanked.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that to understand on the back end, things like key performance indicators, just numbers, understanding the way a business works. Because what a lot of people don't understand, again, is that they need to understand how a business works and not just by the book. Because there are so many classes out there that will teach you how a business works, that will teach you, again, by the book, a very general way of how a business works. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the person teaching the class or those books have actually been through the trenches of owning a business. Because when you're in the trenches and you understand how a business works and something happens, and I'll circle back to this, but something happens where the phone stops ringing, the customers stop coming through the door. When you run a business, you can understand and you can foresee that stuff happening. So when you're reading the financials, when you're reading in an annual report or
Mhm.
an annual report
Yeah.
of a large business, and you see these holes in the business, you know to get out of that stock before it takes.
Makes it way easier for you to read between the lines.
It makes it ways, and reading between the lines is huge.
Yeah. Well, that's
when it comes-
generally make or break.
What's that?
That's make or break in most cases.
Yep, for sure.
So just on that, like, is there a particular part of running your own business that has helped? So like, was it the cash flow side of it? Was it the human resource side of it? Like, was there something in particular that stands out other than the obvious, obviously just the money bit? Like, was there something in particular that stood out to you that was something that maybe you might have taken you by surprise as far as how much it would have helped?
So many things. For example, and I won't name the company, but there is a company that I've been following for a very long time, and just going through their annual report recently, there's not a lot happening on the back end to grow the business, to expand the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good business. It's a very solid business. They're sitting on a pile of cash. It's amazing, but they're not necessarily uh, doing a whole lot that they're talking about in terms of growth. And growth is huge when it comes to business and understanding business, and because you want to see growing numbers. And so I
Correct.
think that that is something that I really had to learn in my own business,
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to then see in other businesses. Because you can have a business that looks pretty solid on paper, but if they're not talking about plans for expansion, if there are no plans for growth there, then that business is going to plateau at some point.
Correct. Yeah, well, there's only so far you can go with doing what you're currently doing, regardless of what industry you're in, what type of business you run. You're always going to have a particular percentage of business that will just walk through the door,
Yeah.
or might be word of mouth, which is probably the best form of marketing.
Yeah.
But you can't gauge that metric, and you definitely can't predict what's going to come of it. It just as it comes. So, is there particular things from like from like a marketing perspective that that you realize are really important, not just in your business, but like I said, when you read these financial reports or you're looking into these other businesses, like is the marketing something that you really look at? Like, is it okay? These guys are doing X amount of revenue, their bottom line looks like this, but like you said, maybe their marketing allocation is like $20,000 a year when it's not. When you look at where the business should go, it should probably maybe be like double, triple that. So like, does that ever come into play?
The main thing that I'm looking at is making sure their sales are going up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see at least 20% year over year
Yeah.
for each quarter. The marketing aspect of the business it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very important because we want to make sure that, they're putting themselves out there, they're getting out there. Those particular numbers, I don't pay attention to as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's more sales.
Yeah.
And that might not be the best practice for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
For me in particular, I want to see the sales coming through.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what a lot of Wall Street investors were looking at too, is they just want to make sure that those numbers are going up
It's
and
really
that their debt is being paid off over a certain amount of time, because most companies, especially big companies, are in a huge amount of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've given us a really good insight into your upbringing, and you've shared quite a few things. So thank you for that. I know sometimes people don't like to share a lot of those things. So it's really nice that you have. So thank you. It gives me an even better understanding of your drivers, and I know it does the audience as well. So if we went from here, we started talking about what Market Start is, and as far as a product as to what you offer. I understand that there's a coaching element to it, but can you want to elaborate on that and kind of what it is that you do as fundamentally do or offer as a service?
Yeah, absolutely. So Market Start is it's an online educational program to help people understand stock market investing. And there's a lot in there about reading between the lines of business,
Yep.
and the actual market and market news. And so it's basically an online video platform where you can go on, and we kind of take people through a step-by-step process
Mm-hmm.
of investing and where to start, which is outside of the market, because you never want to just get right in and buy a stock. You want to understand not just the company that you're buying stock in, but you understand the market and market cycles.
Yep.
So we pretty much just take people through this step-by-step program. And we had this program for a long time, and now we're changing it into something else. So it's now become kind of a community-based program,
Yep.
which is kind of something that I wanted all along. I've been in a lot of stock market communities, and believe it or not, people can be very territorial over the stock market, especially if they've lost money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have someone who comes in who's a newbie, and they're just asking questions in this group setting, and they get ripped apart. And it's painful to see.
Yep.
I created Market Start for people to have a safe place to go to learn about stock market investing.
Yeah.
And so we're launching something called Market Minds, which is a community-based program that has all of our step-by-step video tutorials, as well as weekly and monthly updates, so people can understand what's going on in the market on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And also we have stock market tips. So depending on something that might happen that week, we can go in and talk about, hey, this is what's going on, this is why it's happening. And we give people kind of bite-sized educational pieces of
Yep.
the stock market, something that they can digest.
And then like be able to digest that bit of information and then go out and implement it into
Yeah.
their own trading.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of information all at once, it's really great, but it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
very overwhelming. And that's another reason why I wanted to create this, because we wanted to give people a step, again, I have to say these words again, a step-by-step way. And something that just holds people's hands through the entire process.
Yeah.
Because if you go on other platforms, you'll see that it's just a lot of information thrown at everyone at once.
Yep.
And this, again, just takes people through step by
And just
step.
drip feeds them through it at a pace where they're able to absorb and understand it as they go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In small bite-sized pieces too,
Yeah, because it is there's a lot of daunting things about investing, like even just from an outsider looking in, and having done a little bit of it myself. Like, you work really hard for your money, whether you own a business or you work for someone, regardless. Like, most people work really hard for their money. So being able to part with that with that cash and put it into something which can be a bit of an unknown,
Yeah.
or a lot of an unknown,
Yeah.
can be very daunting.
Yeah.
So, having someone there to essentially hold your hand through that process and give you the information as you need it, it would be, is amazing. So when does this all launch?
We're probably about a week or two away from launching. So
Perfect.
we're just tying up all these loose ends and,
Yeah.
putting it together in a pretty bow. And
So anyone watching this on YouTube, we'll make sure that we put a link to that in the bio, so they're able to go and check that out.
great.
Yeah. And then would you say that this has, from what I've understood from everything so far, and what I'm taking also from this is, like, if you're a business owner, even if you're not investing yet, and maybe you're thinking, even if it's kind of in the back of your head, you think about in the future.
Yeah.
This sounds like this should also be something really good for a business owner to just do from a business standpoint as well.
Yeah.
Just from talking about reading between the lines, understanding what these like profit and loss statements or like these spreadsheets look like, and be able to read through those numbers. That's where a lot of business owners struggle.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that this would also be really good for someone who maybe runs their own business or is looking to start their own business,
Right.
to just also maybe from like a financial literacy standpoint too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, when you have that business and you get to a cash positive
Mm-hmm.
point, you want to know, okay, well, I got this money. What do I do with it? Let's grow it.
Correct. Yeah, because a lot of people get the cash and I don't know what to do with it. I'm just gonna go buy a G wagon.
Yeah.
They're not really thinking about how I can make my money work for me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do ultimately.
And then when you started this business, kind of backing it up a little bit, when did it all kind of hit you and say, okay, this is like, obviously you're pretty sold on the mission from day one, which is a really good place to start. But when was it that was there a particular turning point in the business where you were like, okay, like this has got legs to go?
Yeah. So we have something called the Wealth Builders hit list,
Hmm.
which is a list of over 100 stocks and funds. It's a pretty solid system
Yep.
of investing and accountability and understanding the ebbs and flows of stocks and the stock market. And so when that started to gain popularity, I think that from there we
Yep.
just said, all right,
Let's go. Yeah.
let's go for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of businesses, really, no matter the industry, there's always that one thing. It's like, okay, like this is a really good idea, let's do it, and it starts to gain a little bit of traction, and then it's like, it's okay, this is good, it's kind of chugging along,
Yeah.
and then something happens, or there's usually feedback from a client or something, and it's okay, like this can really, really work.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that. One other question I wanted to ask you is, because the audience might not know this either, like you're also a client of Kurious Group.
Yeah.
So you've been working with Kurious Group now for roughly about 3 years. So how has that journey been for you?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, everyone on the team is just so pleasant to work with, but on top of that, they are such a hardworking, good, loyal team. Their passion for creativity with the ads and everything has been instrumental to growing the business. Um, the studio particularly.
Yeah.
They are, I mean, Monica, your wife is absolutely amazing.
She's a superstar.
Yeah,
Yep.
she is a superstar. I told her this the other night at dinner. And yeah, I mean, I just love working with everyone there. They're fantastic.
Well, it's great. Like, finding a team, this is where like what we really try to emphasize on as well, like finding a team that you can work with, even if they're external of your business, that'll run when you need to run and will do what you need, it will help you take the business where you want to go, is really instrumental no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So looking at like your relationship with Monica in particular and Kurious Group, how has that evolved over time with your two businesses?
So, it's funny because I feel like from the get-go, I felt like I knew Monica when I came on board with her because she came highly recommended to me from two other studios that work with her and Curious Group. And um so I mean over time I feel like she's become like a friend to me. She's the entire team really is always just very responsive. They're
Hmm.
super helpful. Um, I've I've definitely come to Monica with other things, not even marketing related, that she's helped me with.
Hmm.
Because so over time, I think that the relationship has just gotten stronger and stronger, and she's been the entire team really has been such a driving force in the business. And yeah, we're super grateful to be
Well,
working with everyone.
it's always good to hear from people that we do work with and we work very closely with, like we do with yourself, how we've been able to assist in your growth. Like, really, this is your journey. We're here to just support you along the way. So it's always good to hear that. And can't wait to see where this new product goes
Yeah.
with Market Start.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's going to hopefully reach as many people as possible,
Yeah.
and help as many people as possible, from understanding markets, business, and everything else. Because, like I said, it is pretty daunting. Even like having a bit of understanding about it, it's still very daunting. So that's definitely something that is really like that we're really excited to see come to fruition. Having taken a lot of risks in business over time, by risks I mean starting your own business. That's a big risk in itself.
Yeah.
Having investing the time, the capital,
Yeah.
and the energy into it, and the blood, sweat, and tears.
Mhm.
Um, Someone else, an entrepreneur, maybe similar to yourself, who's taken that first step, started their business, and has hit a wall. And maybe they've got into a point where their business has grown, like we spoke about before, through word of mouth and through foot flow traffic. And now it's kind of hit that plateau and they're not too sure where to go from here. Like, what's one bit of advice you would want to give those people?
I will give them the same advice that someone gave to me when I hit that point.
Yeah.
Very early on in my business. I think I was advertising on Groupon at this point, so it was very, very early.
Hmm.
And Groupon is I don't know if you guys have that here, but it's basically a platform where you go and you buy a a coupon
Yeah.
for a service that is less expensive than what it normally is.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I was advertising on there, I got to a point where the phone stopped ringing, and I think I was just like, what is going on? What's happening? Like what did I mess up here? And I was talking to another business owner about it, another small business owner, and he said, "You can't relax." It's like you can't relax. And I don't believe that to be 100% or 1000% true. Like go on vacation, take a mental break, those are crucial.
Yep.
But I think honestly, stay on top of your customers, listen to your clients, stay on top of marketing, make sure you're out there reaching people. If you are on foot handing out flyers, be that person. But yeah, in a way, you can relax.
You've always got to be on.
You've got to be on. You've got to be on. Yeah.
And then if you had one bit of advice you'd want to give to uh, someone who's got that young entrepreneurial mindset and is thinking about taking that first step or
Yeah.
that big step, into maybe a whole bunch of financial debt to start their own business,
Mhm.
would you say that's the same advice you'd want to give them, or is there something else you'd want to say?
I would say just go,
Yep.
just keep going. One thing that I look back on when I first started this business that I'm grateful for is I never overanalyzed anything. I just kept going because there is always a way. There's always another corner that you can turn.
Hmm.
So just keep going.
And then if there was one piece of advice you'd want to give to, it's got a bit of a curveball. If there was one bit of advice you'd want to give to your younger self, what would it be?
My younger self. Well, something that someone gave me, if that's okay
Yeah.
to say, that I'm happy I took because my younger self normally wouldn't have taken this approach, but I did. I was like, all right, we're going to go with it. Is write everything down. Write everything down. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start out, they don't do that enough.
Yeah.
And then they get to a point where they're hiring and it's like, oh, what what can I give to this person? A step by step, again, step by step process to just here you go, just do this. So I would say write everything down. Because actually, there were some times when I didn't write everything down, and I wish I did, because then that's time. You
Yeah.
have to go back and do that when you could have just taken 5 minutes, even if you just voice memo it to yourself. But write everything down.
And then what's one bit of advice you want to give to your future self?
My future self. Oh gosh. Well, I have lots of questions. Advice for my future self. Oh God, I don't know. This is a good one. I mean, I guess I want to hear from I'd like advice from my future self. I think just maybe enjoy life more, maybe, or I don't know. That's a really tough one.
It is. It's always good to, it's always easy to look back and reflect, but
Yeah.
looking ahead to the future is not that easy. But I think you actually just nailed it with what you just said is like you'd want to hear from your future self.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your future self's gonna know what you're doing now that's strong.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think I'd rather hear from my future self than give my future self advice.
And then what's next for Jodi before we wrap up? Besides this new course coming out, like what's next? What's on the horizon?
So we're looking into expanding the studio
Yeah.
and doing a new brand with the studio and expanding that way. So, um, but I think right now we're just really excited with the launch of Market Lines and getting that off the ground and
It's requiring probably a lot of energy at the moment to get it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can imagine. Well, no, we're really excited to see where that goes, and even with the studio as well. We've watched you go from strength to strength. So it's wonderful to see all of it come into fruition as quickly and as successfully as it has. So, thank you for being our guest today for our first episode back for the year.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And yeah, would hope you enjoy your time in Australia as well.
Oh, it's been great. I love Australia. It's been awesome. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.